Welcome everyone to our webinar today, and I want to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We do have a worldwide audience here on our identity and threat protection webinar. My name is Kevin Vogel. I'll be your moderator today, and with me I have Jim Canfield. And Jim, say hello.
Hello, Jim. Everybody.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we're all working. We're going to be covering everything, or well, not everything, but really the foundation of the M365 security that's out there. And Jim's going to be going through a bunch of information. Let me just do a little bit of housekeeping here. You can ask any questions along the way. There's a question and answer box on your on your live event. I used to go to my webinar, but we now use live event. So you can go in and ask a question, and we'll try to answer it as quickly as we can to be able to make sure that you participate in the webinar. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jim and get started. Jim, it's all yours.
Thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon, everybody, or good day. As Kevin kindly pointed out, there's someone all around the world. So today, my team and I, we're going to try to do as good a job as we can, at least from a high-level perspective, talking about some of the really unique and cool features of the MSKU from Microsoft as it relates to identity and threat protection. Kevin used the word all, and it made me smile because there's like, for those of you that are familiar with Microsoft, especially the MSKU, there's like 800 applications or something in there. So doing them all, we would be here until the middle of next week or something. So,
well, that's why I said foundation, Jim. I was trying to be careful here. And I will tell you that Carla did ask one question. If you can, any features that you're talking about, if you can say this is part of the E5 or E3 type of thing, this way, you know, they'll let them know what licensing they need for that. If that's okay with you, Jim.
That's good. And to be very frank with you, most of the discussions that we're going to have are going to be focused on the E3. Licensure as it relates to compliance. We will talk about some of the stuff that's in 5, but I'll differentiate it as we go through. So for those of you that are aware, and I just don't want to assume, but in Office 365, there's Microsoft MSKUs. It's an MSKU is made up of their Windows 10 Enterprise, Office 365 Enterprise, and then Enterprise Mobility Suite and Security. So we're going to assume that everybody's reasonably familiar with those today for the purposes of this call. I'm not going to go do a deep dive into the applications. We're actually here to talk about the capabilities of Microsoft 365 from a security and identity perspective. We'll happily answer any questions we can, but I'm not going to do a deep dive into the differences in licensure. So with that, I'm going to get going. So,
but if you do have questions on licensure, please hit us up with a chat here or a question, and we'll answer it after the webinar. We'll actually, you know, hit you with an email or maybe even get you on the phone.
Thank you, Kevin. So in today's world, we all have the same or similar challenges as it relates to managing access to data, managing user access, and we have a job. As IT, our job is to enable users access to all data, any time of the day or night, from anywhere, easily and securely. This is a huge challenge. It's very hard to make stuff simple. And that's where the Microsoft security capabilities and what I consider the security blanket really plays into an organization. So what we're going to talk about a little bit today is just the quantities and the numbers of apps, both internally developed and third party, whether they're software as a service, platform as a service, or stuff that you have on your premise, or most organizations have all of the above, okay? A lot of organizations are doing a lot of external connectivity or working with clients or with partners where they're literally doing directory integration between two companies that are doing work together. And the most popular today is we, as organizations, are applying or granting access to end users, and we're utilizing Active Directory as a authentication mechanism for that. So it helps us to maintain compliance, increase our capabilities of compliance, simplify our users' access, and get better control of what's going on in our environment. So with that being said, a couple of things of note that Something you're aware of, not aware of, Active Directory, and by extension, Azure Active Directory, by number of authentications is the world's largest cloud identity service when you compare it to things like OpenAuth and all this other stuff that's out there. When you look at the AD, I mean, we all know that 90 whatever percent of the companies around the world are using Active Directory as an authentication mechanism. I can speak English very well. And as you can see from the cute little slide with all of the different sources, whether it's Outlook, whether it's Workday, whether it's Google, doesn't really matter where you're going to. It's just you're able to leverage the cloud for centralized secure authentication to all of these different applications, whether they're premise or cloud or SaaS or whatever. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about. And just a few examples of how this is being worked, some of the applications, these are all the major players. So none of this is surprising, but whether you're using Citrix on-premise, you're using Citrix in Amazon, you're using Citrix in Azure, it doesn't matter. We've done multiple single sign-ons for clients where they're using Google Apps. Okay, so leveraging Azure AD for that kind of thing, it's pretty straightforward. A lot of the times we're doing single sign-on for Google Apps when we're helping organizations migrate over to Office 365, but it gives us a good way to make sure they have access to stuff in both directions. So everybody on the call can read, I know you can see it, but if you look at the different organizations, these are just a small number. Okay, later on in the organization, you'll see over 2 million applications have actually been used by counted by Microsoft that have utilized Azure Active Directory for authentication. So Microsoft, of course, is using standards. They're using the open standards. Okay, whether it's SAML, secure authentication markup language, SIM, FIDO, or the other solutions, it supports them. So whatever apps you have, we have the ability to authenticate through Azure Active Directory. A lot of organizations, especially organizations that are developing apps in-house, are looking to separate the application from the authentication. So what they'll do is they'll extend Active Directory into the app, develop the applications based on one of the standards, but they're leveraging Active Directory to allow people in. So it is the future, a separation of application and authentication. So because our goal in life should be authenticate, who are you? Authorize, what do you need to do? Okay, and then account for it. Make sure you keep a list of who's doing what, when, where, and why. So that's the 3 A's of identity, and those are the things that we're trying to leverage in this environment. So, and it's interesting. I've been doing Microsoft for a long time, way too long. I grew up in the Novell world, and I, of course, made fun of Microsoft 20 years ago. Oh, they're not secure. There's people on the phone right now smiling if you're over 40, probably. But something that I found pretty amazing, I guess, is the best way to describe this. Over the last year, the Microsoft security offerings, specifically the offerings that are part of the MSKU, where they've ended up in the Gartner. We've all been looking at Microsoft for years going, yeah, they're good middle of the road solutions, but this point solution is better than Microsoft or that point solution. And while they're not the top in every one of the quadrants, they're in the top right-hand corner of the 5 most popular security quadrants from Gartner. So this is something very new and unique to Microsoft over the last, since about 20, these are all started, they hit the top right in all 5 in fourth quarter 2019. So, and it looks like they're going to be there again, and they're improving this year. So, and going forward. Now, as we talk about connecting workforces to apps, that's what we're going to have a conversation a little bit. We're going to talk about Azure Active Directory and how we leverage it and connect to applications. So we talked about the standards. So when we take Azure Active Directory, first, we connect it to your Active Directory on premise, okay? This Active Directory can be on your premise. If you don't want to or you wish to, we can move the Active Directory to Azure, okay? Or we can move to Azure or Active Directory as a service in Azure or somewhere in the middle of those. We have the ability to do hybrid Active Directory, etc. But from there, we have the ability to extend out to thousands and thousands and thousands of applications for authentication purposes. Azure AD is the central hub. And what Microsoft has done is, for thousands of applications, is they've simplified the process. If you follow the steps in the documentation, you can get your application to work with Azure Active Directory. I'll give you a story. 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when Azure AD first came out, they said, yeah, we have all these apps. I said, great. So I went and I found Salesforce. And what I did was I went and set up a developer tenant in Salesforce. I am not a Salesforce user, have never been a Salesforce user, but I went and set up I chose Salesforce because you had the ability to do a developer tenant. So I did that. I connected it into Azure AD, and in 3 hours, I set up an account. I connected it to Salesforce. Through the use of Active Directory user groups, I was able to create accounts, enable users access to them, go in, disable the user, take the user out of the Active Directory group, and go out and remove that user from the Salesforce. It works amazingly well. And when you're talking about SaaS apps or premise apps or whatever, you have the ability to add that level of functionality into the apps. And just, I mean, here's one of those slides. This is just, I don't know, 40 or 50 of the most popular apps that are on the market: DocuSign, SAP, Smartsheets, whatever. But it's quickly becoming a platform that you can utilize for authentication across your entire company. Okay, and this is not just for the largest organizations. Smaller organizations are using this like crazy because it simplifies the process for your employees. They need access to 4, 5 applications. It's pretty simple to set this up, even if they're just web applications. Actually, an interesting example. One of the most popular applications that's being used and authenticated through using Azure Active Directory, believe it or not, is LinkedIn. Okay, typical organization will have a marketing department with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and those people need to log into things like LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the other social media thingies. For whatever reason they do that. Sorry, I'm a bit of a geek, so social media is not my strongest point, but they'll create an account at LinkedIn for company XYZ. Okay, they'll then grant access to that LinkedIn for the 5 users, whatever it is in the organization, through Azure Active Directory. So they go to LinkedIn. They don't know the login name and password for LinkedIn. All they know is their login name and password for Active Directory. When they go to LinkedIn, they're able to make changes, etc. And in the event that somebody forgets a password, well, 5 people don't have to get a new password because they're changing passwords all the time. Or when a person leaves, you disable their AD account. They don't have access to these resources anymore. So it's just a matter of, let's make it simple. Let's make it easier. Let's allow people to grant or to get access to the applications that they need quickly, easily, but we have to protect the organization, intellectual property of the organization. And as we go forward a little bit, we're going to be talking more about compliance and security within the environment. So so that's next. Okay. Now,
Jim, I got a question from John.
Sure.
John has a hybrid environment running applications in multiple clouds and in the data center. Is it best to run Azure Active Directory in the cloud only, or should he be doing Active Directory in a hybrid environment?
I'll speak very plainly. We've done both. Our recommendation is, when an organization has Active Directory on premise, we believe in extending Active Directory out into Azure, utilizing AD Connect. AD Connect is a tool that replicates Active Directory into Azure. Then, utilizing Active Directory Premium or AD Premium, it gives us the ability to authenticate to Office 365 and to all of the other third-party apps, but continue to use your Active Directory on-premise. And at some point, going down the road, you may choose to spin up a domain controller in Azure, for example, or in Amazon, or wherever you want to put it. But the point is that you can put a domain controller up there, and then at some point down the road, consider either moving towards a non-hybrid Active Directory when all of the features and functions are there in Azure. But it's not something you want to do really quickly, especially if you have a mature Active Directory environment, because there's a lot of things that you want to take into account before you try to make these changes. The other thing is when you look to go to native Active Directory in Azure, the devices have to be joined just as if you're doing an Active Directory upgrade. So the devices have to be rejoined into Active Directory. So we recommend the hybrid, typically long-term, except for small companies until the future, as it gets easier over the next couple of years to minimize the changes for the users. So I hope that helps a little bit.
It did. And one more question. Is there a certain version of Active Directory that I have to be on to be able to set up a hybrid environment? This is from Jane.
Great question. Today, for AD Connect and for Exchange Hybrid, moving to Office 365. And you'll hear me, I keep referring to Office 365, and the reason is it's not Exchange. All tenants, all Microsoft Online tenants are considered an Office 365 tenant. Whether you have Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, whatever, or not, it's still considered an Office 365 tenant, okay? AD Connect is the connector from your AD to the premise. Now, the recommended minimum functional level of Active Directory is 2008 R2. Microsoft continues to be more, I'm going to use the word demanding from an updates perspective. So I'm guessing timeline is set. I don't remember the dates off the top of my head, but 2012 is going to become the minimum soon, next 12 or 18 months. I forget the timeline, forgive me, but today it's 8R2. They're pushing clients faster and faster because the current Active Directory is 2019. Microsoft wants to support current -1. 2008 R2 is current -4. So you got 2019, 2016, 2012 R2, 2012, 2008 R2. So I think that's 4. I think I can count. But so that's the point. Microsoft's pushing people ahead very, very quickly. And one of my partners on the phone, his name is Tracy Weatherington, actually. He sent me a love note yesterday telling me about the future of Exchange. And for those of you who are on Exchange premise, 2012 or 2013, 2016, next version of Exchange is going to become a non-numbered Exchange. It's just going to be something similar to server, similar to some of the other servers where it's just going to be a long number. So 1028, 1875. So that's next for Exchange, ladies and gentlemen. So that's due out soon, I think. Tracy, I don't know if the timeline.
That's correct, Jim, and it's going to be subscription based, just like Office 365.
Yep. So that's something to keep in mind, guys and gals. And because 2016 and 2013 Exchange both run out of support, I'm going to tell you it's 2025, I think is the date, if I remember right from the email I saw yesterday. So anyway, I don't want to go too far off into that tangent, but so let's talk a little bit about protection and compliance. Okay. I'm going to do something I really don't like doing. 81% of breaches leverage stolen or weak passwords. I don't like reading slides, forgive me, but it's the easiest way to get the point. The numbers and the recommendations and percentages, et cetera, that you see in here are all referenced from Microsoft. Microsoft provides these numbers to us. So I'll go with their detail, but based on our experience, this is not an uncommon occurrence. So downside is okay, passwords, let's make them harder. Okay, you have to have a 72-digit password. You have to stand on your left foot in the wind to be able to put it in. Well, that's ridiculous, because then everybody lifts up their keyboard, looks underneath, and just gets annoying, okay? Users will find ways to get around things if we make it difficult for them. Personally, and what we've done here at Champion, what we do with a lot of clients, is we're moving away from the reliance upon passwords. We're moving towards the Microsoft Authenticator Act. You can use the Microsoft Authenticator, you can use the Google Authenticator, and there's a dozen other authenticators out there where basically you get a screenshot up, you scan it, becomes a part of your computer or a part of your cell phone. When you go to authenticate, it pops up, it gives you a one-time use code, bang, you go in, okay? It's moving down the world of passwordless, which is where we want to go, is make passwords a thing of the past, okay? get as many easily utilized multi-factors as possible. We all seen the stories out there of, oh yeah, text messaging, it's easy to overcome. Nah, it's not really that easy to overcome, but the bottom line is that Microsoft states that 98 to 99% of all hacks from external can be overcome by just basic, simple MFA. That'll of course change and as people get better at overcoming it. But the point of the whole rant is if we continue to use the tools, if we continue to use what's called conditional access. Conditional access means if user is logging in from a known network, great, let him or her in. If they're coming in from an unknown location, challenge them, okay? Whether it's a text message, smoke signal, authenticator app, whatever it is, okay? And if you're not getting an answer, or if the way that they're answering the question doesn't seem appropriate based on artificial intelligence, stop them, don't let them go in, okay? So it's some of the capabilities that Azure Active Directory and some of the capabilities that are now becoming commonplace within Azure Active Directory Premium, and the security capabilities are to work and understand what users are doing. Specific feature, and this was asked at the beginning, the specific feature that basically focuses on artificial intelligence and understanding that a user is acting, the technical term, weird, trying to get in, that's specific to the 5 level, or what's called the E5 or M5 level of Enterprise Mobility Suite. So that's part of Azure Active Directory P2, or the 5 level of software. So I just wanted to be specific on that. But at the end of the day, when we're looking to do or simplify this authentication, it's hard, okay? We have to work hard as IT professionals. We have to work hard to make it simple, okay? We have to work hard to give the users, or get our users to go, wow, this authenticator app is pretty cool, or the stupid one, Windows Hello, it's my favorite. Okay, I have my little Microsoft Surface laptop. When I turn it on, I know my password because I know my password, but I don't use it. I use a PIN, or I use the camera. Okay, the camera looks at me. It says, okay, you're not too funny looking, lets me in. Okay, my cell phone, I've gone completely biometric, finger touchy thingy on my little happy little Google Pixel 4a, great phone, by the way. And, you know, but and then you can go the older versions. Let's use the soft or hard tokens. A soft token is something you can install on a local device, or a card that somebody's walking around with. There's other solutions. And as we go forward, okay, we're actually moving down to, Microsoft recently brought to general availability password management. What I mean by that is they have a list of commonly used passwords, okay? The commonly used password policy, you can put it in such that in the event that the user goes to change a password to something that's just too common, it'll come up and say, I'm sorry, your password does not meet the complexity requirements. You also, as an organization, have the ability to put in your own list, okay? Don't allow people to put in company name 123 or something like that, or 12345, because nobody should use that, the code of my luggage for logging in. So anyway, that is how Microsoft is improving, and the password protection capabilities or rules, that's part of the standard Azure Active Directory P1 and P2, which are part of the 3 or 5. So, and as we go forward, okay, and what's next, okay, this is, I talked a little bit about conditional access, but conditional access is pretty straightforward. You have conditions, okay, time of day, locations, hell, it could be the MAC address of your PC, I don't know, okay, or you could be in a country. I might be on vacation. I may be given a special dispensation to be able to log in when I go to Moscow, whatever, okay? Point is that those conditions are things that are able to be put in, measured, managed, and reacted to. When Jim is trying to log in from Moscow, and they don't know about it, block access, limit access, or enhance the challenges that I have to go through. Okay, maybe I have to do a text message, maybe I have to make a phone call or take a phone call or something along those lines, or whatever other levels of authentication I may require. So, and then you look at the logic behind this, okay? In our business today, you could have hundreds of applications. You could have hundreds of desktops, different operating systems, different applications inside your organization, outside, organizations that are here, there, and everywhere. And you have to be able to make sure that when George needs to get in to an application and he's on vacation or he's somewhere that he's not usual, that one, he's challenged, two, he's able to overcome that challenge, three, you understand that he is who he says he is, okay? And then you're allowing him access to the different applications, but it's all being handled through a central location. And with the 5 licensure, you have the ability to understand from an artificial intelligence perspective if George, by the way, George is my favorite user in case anybody's interested, if George is acting weird or doing stuff that he shouldn't, it locks him off, okay? And with this and taking this down the road of that whole Microsoft, the whole Microsoft, when I showed it the slide earlier with the 5 different areas, when you look at the Enterprise Mobility Suite 3 and 5 solutions, when you look at the security capabilities that are available, Microsoft, what they've done is they've basically taken it from cradle desktop, where I enter data in, to the grave, okay, the archive server, and everything in between is able to be monitored and secured utilizing the 365 from Microsoft's latest release, Microsoft Defender ATP. Defender ATP, every Windows 10 workstation on the world has Microsoft Defender virus on it. Most of us install some third-party tool to replace it, but Defender ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, now delivers local DLP on the workstation. It provides heavy-duty spam and malware. It provides monitoring of what the user is doing, going for here and there. It provides direct connectivity into the Microsoft SOC, Security Operations Center. So they've taken that free little virus, antivirus spam thing that virus malware that we've been using forever, and they've actually made it the real deal. They've also delivered it now for servers, okay? When you look at it and you go, okay, it's $5 a month per user. Okay, I compare it to the other players that are out there. Okay, it's in the top right-hand corner. It's good, okay? Then when you look at the other solutions that are there, it gives you the ability to look at your entire security policies from what's called perspective of compliance and a perspective of security, okay? And the next screen that I'm going to show you is what's called Compliance Manager. Compliance Manager is a recent go live from Microsoft. Compliance Manager leverages SecureScore. Microsoft had put a utility out about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Forgive me if I'm lying to you. I'm not doing it on purpose. SecureScore, basically, it looked at your entire 365 tenant from Azure to Exchange and everything in between. Came back with here are the top 10 or here are the top 15 security concerns, things you might want to do, things you might want to turn off, policies you might want to create, and it would give you a score, okay? And you could have a score, and today now it gives you a score out of 100%, but it would give you point values for doing things like disabling the ability to forward all my emails to Google or whatever. It allowed you to create those policies and automate those policies being created against all of your workloads in 365. Excuse me. And over the last couple of years, it is escalated in capability and usability. It's great, okay? And now, give or take 9 months ago, they brought out the Compliance Manager. In Compliance Manager, what they've done is they've taken everything they learned from SecureScore. They've then developed and implemented the policies that Microsoft and Microsoft Security has developed for maintaining or implementing compliance, okay, into the SecureScore, such that they now have Compliance Manager. Compliance Manager gives me the ability to look at my entire 365 tenant, to look at my on-premise utilization of Azure Active Directory, okay, my on-premise usage of things like Defender, ATP, and other tools, and it comes back and it gives me a score of what's going on in my environment. You guys out there, okay, whether you're a privately held company, whether you're a publicly held company, whether you're in Japan or in Europe with GDPR or Japanese SOX or Australian MOUSC, for crying out loud, for all the different acronyms that we have to deal with. Microsoft told me, and I read this, and it's like amazing, but there's 1,000 different regulatory orgs. The good news is lots of governments and great power around the world, but they're apparently coming out 220 updates a day. Okay. Now, obviously, your company, my company, we don't have to deal with 1,000 regulatory orgs, but even dealing with 1 or 2 or 3, the number of updates can be daunting to keep up. This is not click the button, you're done. This does not deliver compliance in a box. This delivers a management tool that tells you what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, and most importantly, how to fix what's not being done well. So, and I know this is a bit hard to read, sorry about that, but when you look at the compliance manager, okay, it gives you actions for improvement. They've got pre-done assessments or templates based on your alphabet soup, whether it's GDPR or SOX or whatever. Okay, gives you the ability to implement, utilize them, do a search, gives you the ability to go in and customize the policies, etc., such that it works best for your business. You can create your own from scratch, or you utilize the assessment templates that have been done. Maybe it gets you 85% of the way there, 75% of the way there, whatever. If it's 50% of the way, it's still 50% further along than you were yesterday. So that's why I really like the Compliance Manager. I find it to be an amazing new set of tools that are available from Microsoft. So for those of you that have the 3, Enterprise 3 or above, you've got access to this at compliance.microsoft.com. So, or security.microsoft, I forget. But other things, you can see some solutions, whether it's Azure Active Directory, information protection, etc. Okay. And then this is just some ideas of the types of compliance that are available around the world. I mean, it's daunting, the numbers of things that are available around the world. So
Jim, is this the foundation or the beginning of that zero trust model that, you know, getting so much press out there lately?
The short answer to your question is Azure Active Directory with conditional access is absolutely the foundation for zero trust. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so yes, that is the answer. And then with the different tools such as the compliance manager, etc., you have the ability to make sure you're delivering upon what you're supposed to deliver securely. So we're at about 2:30 right at the moment, about 30 minutes in. Right now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how Azure Active Directory extends into the business to change how the business works. To this point, we've been primarily focused on granting users access, the behind the scenes stuff. What we're looking at now is the stuff that's actually much more partner or customer facing. Okay, and yes, our employees are customers, but to this point, I'm also going outside the walls of the organization. So when you're doing identity, when you're looking to grant partnership access, God knows what you're looking at. God knows what you want to connect to, what we want to do, and what, for those of you on the phone that have ever used Active Directory Federation Services, ADFS. ADFS is an amazing tool from Microsoft that's been around for 15 years, more than that. It allowed for foreign directory connectivity. I have company A and company B. Company A's on Active Directory, company B's on Active Directory, or company B's on LDAP, or they're on GroupWise, or not GroupWise, EDF. Never mind. Another directory. We have the ability to connect different applications together. Okay, my user can authenticate to your application. Your user can authenticate to my application. Hi ho, but I'm not opening, for lack of a better word, the kimono so people can get in and look at what's going on. I'm only granting the access that's needed. What we're doing here with Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, is we're pushing that piece into the cloud. 1, 2, we're adding an additional level of separation from my Active Directory. 3, we've got a bunch of pre-done capabilities to make it simpler, such that the two organizations, all the communications happening outside of the organization, outside the firewall in Azure, and it's as secure as possible, and it allows you to extend. So, and you can build different policies. So you can build a group, build a manager for company ABC, and that manager can go in and create users from their side and vice versa. So, and
Hey, Jim, I got
sure.
a question. I got a question from the audience. That compliance manager that you were speaking of, is that under Azure Active Directory or is that a separate management console?
It's a separate management console, but it's, if you go into the 365 tenant, protection.office.com or compliance, I forget the direct connection, but if you go to the Office 365 admin, show all the portals, click on the compliance one, it'll pull it up and it's under there.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Sure. So going down or further along in what the stuff that I'm talking about is, I think this is really cool. I mean, I think Compliance Manager is amazing, and I'm an IT guy at heart. I've been in IT for 30 years, and I've been very geeky, and I grew up in Novell World, and I did IBM, and I did all that stuff. But when I look at this stuff, and I've been in Office 365 in that world for the last 11 or 12 years, okay? With Champion, I've helped build a wonderful team. We've migrated 6 or 7 million people to the cloud. We've done identity, etc. We've done every kind of Active Directory console, merger, acquisition, whatever you can imagine. Tracy, who's on the call with me, he and I put together a project where we merged 30,000 user healthcare organizations together. There was probably 18 Active Directory for us. That was cool and fun, okay? But for smaller, not every organization's got a year to put a project together and put it all together. A lot of organizations need to be ready tomorrow. So when you're working with another company, that's your partner, okay? You want to easily grant two-way communication, okay? 365 makes that whole process easier. Or you want to grant your partner access to Teams or SharePoint or whatever, so you guys can work together, or external, whatever, okay? Azure Active Directory lends itself extremely well to that and secures it. Your employees, what I've said, and I'm ranting a little bit, forgive me, access to anything at any time from anywhere, simply, oh, by the way, and securely. That's where Azure Active Directory, conditional access, multi-factor authentication, and all the other cool stuff, that's where that comes in. Password lists, zero trust. Yeah, that's the basis of everything here. And then finally, end users, okay? I live in Florida. We have a little company here called Florida Power and Light. It's our electric company, and they provide power for, I don't know, 25 million people, okay? Well, they have a system sitting on an AS400 that manages all their clients, users, etc., and they manage that directory separately. They then have Active Directory for their 100,000 employees and partners and whatever. Well, wouldn't it be cool if all of that go into Active Directory? Wouldn't it be cool if all of their users had an Active Directory account, and oh, by the way, they could, from their Google email account or from their Facebook account, authenticate who they are and be able to pull up their bill in FP&L and pay it. Just imagine the practicality of being able to utilize centralized authentication. I mean, everybody on the phone, okay, you've got accounts. I don't know, I probably got 200 accounts out there, and I probably don't know about 100 of them because I've had them for so many years. But how many of us have that list of passwords? Like I rely upon Google, okay, for my passwords, but there's Microsoft, there's all kinds of different players. Well, for organizations, it's more important that you understand who, what, where, and when, and that's where the extension of Azure Active Directory. They have the B2C, okay, business to consumer. So you can create the business account, you can manage the user account in your Active Directory through Azure Active Directory. Okay, so it doesn't have to go on your AD on-premise, it's all in the cloud, and it's charged to you by the number of authentications. So it's for 1 million authentications, it's like $5 or something. I don't know the number, but it's very cheap, but it's very secure. When you talk about business to business, you have the ability to do application or whatever type of sharing. So it is quite impressive, and it allows you as an organization to understand where your people are coming from, what they're doing, how long they're there, and when they're not doing anything, and then leveraging things like the compliance manager, etc., understand when people are either having challenges or when they're maybe trying to go places they shouldn't be. So it's quite impressive. So this is sort of a little bit of a regurgitation of what I just said. We're just trying to make it simpler and secure for our customers. Okay. Again, this gives us the ability to leverage Azure AD for all of the different folks. And when you look at this, when you look at the different applications, whether it's a customer, whether it's an employee, whether it's a partner, everything's relying upon the Azure Active Directory. And again, we're separating it from our premise. Okay. You have the ability as an organization to customize or create your own applications. This is just Farmer John's or whatever application that was created. And you see that it's got whether Facebook, Microsoft, Google, how many of your applications today that your personal stuff, do you have the ability to check one of those for authentication? I find it very cool that I can do that now. Okay. This is where you create conditional access policies, and you can create these policies in Azure Active Directory Premium, and you can apply them, whether it's an internal, whether it's all people, whether it's whatever, and you can include or exclude based on the types, the policies that we create in Active Directory today. So it's just in the cloud, and it allows us to apply them to people that are outside the organization as well as partners and people within. So finally, let's talk about application development. Okay. For those of you on the phone that are part or you do application development in your organization, it's interesting. Organizations that do application development, typically you create the application, you create the interface, you make it beautiful, etc. And then most organizations, they build it, they make it functional, then they go back and they try to secure it. Okay. Security is typically, this is not an exact science. Security for application developers is typically anywhere on the low end 20%, on the high end 40 or 50% of the time invested in creating application access, where you have to create what can be done when I log into the app. What organizations are doing and are able to do is they'll create the authentication library leveraging Azure Active Directory. Okay. I'm not an application developer, so if I say anything that sounds silly, you guys can laugh at me, but the point of the whole rant is simple. Microsoft's taken their Azure Active Directory and they've opened up the capability to leverage it for authentication into the different applications. They've extended it out so you, as a company, could actually publish your application out there on the web. You can publish it through the Microsoft Store. You can make it available through Google Stores or whatever. Whether it's on an iPhone, whether it's on an Android or just a typical Windows PC or even a Mac. So, and then you can leverage the different popular environments based on your audience. So, and at the end of the day, leveraging Azure Active Directory, it gives you the ability to automate the process of user provisioning and removal, gives you the ability to leverage the standards, and finally, gives you the ability to pull what's called Microsoft Graph. Microsoft Graph, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, Graph gives me the ability to basically pull data from all of the different 365 workloads and understand what's happening with them, what's being used, what's not being used, and help to understand how to help my people better utilize the applications. Maybe they're getting to certain points in apps and having to abandon what's going on because it's taken too long. I'm just using that as an example. But like, for example, over the last months with this COVID thing, okay, we have helped, I don't know, tens of thousands of people begin utilizing Microsoft Teams, okay? It's the fastest accepted application I've been involved with in the last 11 years. I can't believe it, okay? But Champion, as an organization, we saw a lot of people that were using Teams, and Teams, like a lot of other applications, can just get completely out of control. All of a sudden, we have 9 million Teams. So first application we put together based on Graph was an application that looked at a client's utilization overall of 365. And it came back and said, okay, your people are doing this and this and this. These applications they're not using. Maybe you should do some training or whatever. Then we built one that was specific to teams that not only showed utilization, but automated the process of managing the team. So you can turn them on, turn them off, create a workflows for so if you want a team to be created, you put in a workflow, bang, it goes in, automate the whole process. But the point of that whole thing is we're leveraging the infrastructure that's being provided by Microsoft to understand what our people are doing in the $20 or $25 or $35 or whatever we're spending a month per user. Okay. Are we getting money? Are we doing collaboration? Is it helping our business grow? Okay. And leveraging that, you have the ability to deploy your apps through the Microsoft Store, make it easier for them to use. There's thousands and thousands of them, okay, that are out there, and grow the company. So at the end of the day, okay, Graph is the centralized API that allows everything to talk to everything and allows you to go forward. So that's about it for today. I really appreciate everybody's time. It's interesting doing these because you have to be, or you're the only one who talks, and it can be tough doing that. So thank you, Kevin, for.
I tried, Jim, but
not letting me get too boring. So I hope I hope I survived. So
you had a lot to cover. You had a lot to cover, Jim. So I didn't want to add in too much, since you know a lot more about this than I do. But I'll tell you, the one thing that I got out of this is everything else that Microsoft offers from a security standpoint, whether it's DLP or you mentioned conditional access, it really all starts with Active Directory. And if that's set up properly, it makes all the following steps to secure your environment that much easier.
Well, then I got my message across today. I'm successful. I can hang up now.
Good. All right. I'm not as brain dead as I thought I was. Well, let me just tell you what our next steps here. Now, first of all, just to let you know, this was recorded. You will be getting a link to the recording. So if you want to share this with any of your additional people in your corporation, you can do that. We're also going to be sending out the slides that Jim used. So you'll have all this information at your fingertips. So just want to let you know that. We are going to be raffling off a really neat Yeti cooler for those people that actually joined the webinar. We're going to be pulling that out, probably sometime within the next 24 hours. You'll probably get an email from us if you're the winner. If you want to contact us on any information that has anything to do with either Office 365 or Azure, we have a 877-788-1617, but it's probably easier just to hit us at info@messageops.com, and we'll be able to answer licensing questions or really anything that we covered today. Now, one of the great things of being a Microsoft partner is we have the ability to tap into Microsoft funding. And for a lot of our customers, and I'd say well over 90%, we get all of these 1 to 7 day engagements funded by Microsoft. So if you're looking for an assessment of your environment from a third party, a pair of third eyes, we offer an assessment where we come in and take a look and then make recommendations. And it's funded, like I said, 90% of the time by Microsoft. We also have an advanced workload proof of concept, where if you're looking at developing those apps and using the Graph API that Jim talked about, we'll be more than happy to put together a workshop for you, a proof of concept that will actually help you with that. We also have a security proof of concept and a compliance proof of concept that we can do that. Now, anyone that takes advantage of any of these, like I said, hopefully funded environments, we're actually sending, with the first 5 that people sign up with, a drone. In fact, this is something that's been very popular, especially with our techie brothers and sisters that are out there. And we actually include a drone with the first 5 people that sign up for any of these type of assessments or proof of concept. So just want to let you know that that's available. With that, Jim, you have any closing statement? First of all, if you have any questions for Jim or Tracy or myself, please put them into the question box. We've had a few. We haven't really had as many as I thought we were going to have, but ask whatever questions you want. We do have another 10 minutes here on the webinar that we'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Jim, anything that you want to just throw in there at the end here?
And look, at the end of the day, when I look at Microsoft 365, when I look at the capabilities that are being offered through their security bundle, and again, there's enterprise mobility and security, E3 and E5. There's the M SKU from Microsoft. When you look at the capabilities, when you look at the overall story, it really makes a lot of sense to take a look at and better understand the overall security method, because I'm dealing with clients on a very regular basis that will have 10, 12, 15, 27 or more solutions that they're using, from SIM to virus to everything else in between. And I'll be very clear. Is Microsoft the best at everything? No, nobody in the world is the best at everything. There are a lot of really great point solutions. But when I look at the Microsoft solutions, I look at it this way. I'm using Azure for identity. I'm using advanced threat protection from Azure. I'm using advanced threat protection for 365. I'm using advanced threat protection for Defender, and I'm using all the other tools, and they're all rolling into a single pane or a single console for me. I'm looking at data. I'm looking at stuff from all different directions. The likelihood of me seeing stuff, stupid stuff, or bad things is increased because I'm looking at it from 5 different angles or 3 different angles or 7, whatever the number is. Again, there are best of breed solutions, okay, that are out there. They've been out there for years and years and years. We all know this. But when you start looking at things and you look at it from an enterprise perspective and you look at it from different directions, and when you take the knowledge that your team has in utilizing the screens and you're able to look at the 10 different tools, but they're the same, okay? It really helps reduce your overall training time. And that, at the end of the day, is what we need to do. Is we need to be able to spend more time going deeper than trying to figure out how the heck do I use this application or that application other than the basic out of the box functionality. So that's if there's a message out of today, it's that try to simplify the models that you're using for security, whether you're a bank, healthcare, or a guy named George who owns a 10-person company. Okay, try to look at it from, how do I make it simpler? I want to make it better for my users. I want to make sure I'm secure, but I need to make it simpler for my employees and for my my clients. That's it, because that's what we need. Why has Office 365 been such a success? It touches all users and it works. Okay, so that's the last rant I have for this meeting today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, we did get a question here, and it talks about expiration date on potential Microsoft funding options. There really is no expiration date, but they do run out of money. I'm just being honest with you. They fund these programs at the beginning of their fiscal year, which starts in July for those of you that work with them, and ends in June. And they fund each one of these things, whether it's the security and compliance assessment or the POCs. And then once the money's gone, it's gone. So, you know, it's best to sign up early, even if you're not going to use them right away, so we can get you in the queue and get you funded. But there really is no expiration date. And no problem, Derek. Sorry, I didn't include my name, but that's the answer, Derek, just to let you know. Tracy Weatherington, you have any comments, any words of wisdom from a guy that's out in the field every day working in these environments?
Well, you know, thanks, Kevin. I think one of the biggest things is a lot of people are like, well, why do I want to make that move to Azure AD? Well, chances are you're probably already using it. And that's one of the things I just wanted to point out, is that chances are, if you've adopted any of the services with Office 365, chances are you've already adopted Azure AD. Syncing your on-prem environment to the cloud is most certainly the better way to go, especially if you're looking at doing hybrid configurations and controlling things on-prem as well. application controls on-prem, MFA on-prem. All those things require Azure AD to be, synced to your on-prem environment. So it opens the door for many different security controls. But again, one of the biggest things that I always point out, if you're already in the cloud, chances are you're already using Azure AD. Why not utilize all those tools that come with the product?
Makes sense to me. I know that, most of the companies out there are using Office 365, which means you are using Azure AD. So I agree with you. It's just now configuring it to be more encumbered of the rest of the applications that's out there, all the ones that Jim showed, and there are thousands of them. And I really think that simplifying things, security is great, but if it's complicated, no one uses it. So if you can keep it simple, and I think that's what Jim was talking about, I think it makes it more effective, even if it's maybe not the best thing out there, the best of breed, but if it makes it simple to use, it's probably going to be utilized more. So with that, we do appreciate your time today. We're coming up here on top of the hour. Please ask us, get in contact with us. We'll be more than happy to help you with any of your needs. And with that, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Tracy. And thank you, audience, for spending an hour with us and talking security. Thanks, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.